This time we are going to talk about phrase structure in English, but from the structuralist point of view. The chapter that has been selected for this purpose is chapter number 14, entitled Noun and Verb Phrases. First, we are going to talk about noun phrase. So, the noun phrase usually consists of a noun and all the words and word groups that belong to the noun and cluster around it. The noun is called the head word or the head, and all other words and word groups are the modifiers of the noun. So once again, the phrase structure in English consists of a head. This head is usually a noun, as in these examples. The yellow tulips. Tulips is the head or the head word preceded by two modifiers, which are the definite article there and the adjective yellow. Means that the noun phrase should consist of a head word or a head, which is the noun, and this noun should be preceded and followed by a number of modifiers. By the way, noun modifiers are of two types. Pre-nominal modifiers, those that precede the head or the noun, and post-nominal modifiers, those which follow the head or the noun. Pre-nominal modifiers are single words. They could be determiners, they could be articles, adjectives, and so on and so forth, while the post-nominal modifiers are word groups or phrases. Usually they could be either prepositional phrases or relative clauses. To illustrate this point, now let's go to these two examples. Here in this phrase, the yellow tulips in the garden, the head or the head word is the noun tulips. This head is preceded by two modifiers, which are the definite article there and the adjective yellow, and followed by one post-nominal modifier, which is the preposition phrase in the garden. By the way, by structure in the garden is a prepositional phrase, consists of the preposition in followed by the complement or the object of this preposition, the garden. But by function, this phrase, in the garden, functions as what? As the noun modifier. And the same thing for the next example, the yellow tulips in the garden, which blah blah ila akhirih. Here also, still we have a head, which is tulips, followed by two pre-nominal modifiers, the and yellow, and preceded by two pre-nominal modifiers, and followed by two post-nominal modifiers, which are the prepositional phrase and the relative clause. So we have seen that the noun phrase in English is the result of merging or of combining a head or a head word, which is a noun, should be a noun, and then this noun is preceded by a number of modifiers. These are called pre-nominal modifiers, which are single words, and could be followed by post-nominal modifiers, which are word groups or phrases. The most common types are prepositional phrases and relative clauses. Now we move to the verb phrase structure. What is a verb phrase, and what is the structure of the verb phrase? So this is section B from chapter 14 from Stageberg. So the verb phrase, as you can read, consists of a verb and all the words and word groups that belong with the verb and cluster around it. The verb itself is called what? The head word or the head, and the other words and word groups are the auxiliaries, which they could be modifiers also and complements of the verb. By the way, complements of the verb could be, sometimes they are called completers of the verb. They could be either direct object, indirect object, object complement, and subject complement. What determines the complement of the verb is the type of the verb. When the verb is monotransitive, it takes one object, it should be followed by a direct object. When it is ditransitive, it is followed by two objects. The first one is called indirect object, while the second one is called the direct object. And always when we have two objects, the indirect one should precede the direct one. As in the example, she gave her daughter a present. Her daughter is the indirect object, and a present is the direct object. To clarify the verb phrase structure and the merger technique, now let's comment on these examples. Soon arrived is a verb phrase, simply here. It consists of arrived, which is the head or the head word, preceded by a modifier, soon, which is adverb of time. There should be a head. And by the way, when the head of the word is a noun, it is called a noun phrase. When the head is a verb, it is called a verb phrase. The second example, arrive late, also the head is what is arrive, the verb, and late is a verb modifier, which is still an adverb of time. Sometimes you see that the verb or the head word in the verb phrase could be preceded by a modifier and followed by a number of modifiers, as example number 3. So here, arrived is the head, which is the verb. Soon is the first pre-nominal modifier, which is adverb of time. And attestation is a post-verb modifier, which is an adverb of a place. By the way, by structure, attestation is a prepositional phrase, consists of the preposition at and the noun phrase the station, which functions as the object or the complement of at. Altogether, attestation, grammatically speaking, it functions as what? As an adverb of place, because it can be replaced by the adverb there, and the adverb there is an adverb of a place. All other examples here, sometimes you can see that the head word, which is the verb, it could be preceded by a modifier and followed by a number of post verbal modifiers. So we have learned from the analysis of noun phrase and verb phrase that a phrase in English is rule governed. It is a result of merging or combining here a word by other words. Here you see that. So in the noun phrase, we have a head, which is the noun or the head word, and this noun phrase could be preceded by a number of single word pre-nominal modifiers and followed by a number of word group post-nominal modifiers. For the verb phrase, the head should be a verb. If there is no verb, the phrase is not called a verb. The verb here functions as the head or the head word or the verb phrase. All other words cluster, they belong to the verb. These are the auxiliary. Sometimes we have an auxiliary that precedes the main verb when we have, for example, present continuous, is playing, are playing. And we have modifiers. Here modifiers, we refer to the adverbs and the complements, as we have discussed, as we have seen. are of 4 types. It could be direct object, indirect object, or object complement and subject complement. Remember, these 4 types of verb complements are determined by the type of the verb. And here also the verb functions as the dynamo of the verb phrase. When the verb is monotransitive, it should be followed by N2, which is the direct object. When it is ditransitive, it is followed by 2 objects, which are N2 and N3. N2 is the indirect object, while N3 is what? Is the direct object. But when the verb is a linking verb, it is followed by what? By a subject complement. But sometimes, as we have studied in pattern number 9, so we have sometimes direct object, and this direct object is followed by object complement. This pattern usually occurs with what is called complex transitive verbs. Verbs that take object complement, direct object and object complement, as in the verb elect or select, or the verb nominate. For example, she nominated her baby Ahmed. Here, nominated is a complex transitive verb. It is followed by her baby, which is the direct object, while Ahmed is what? Is the object complement. They elected him a president. Elected is the complex transitive verb followed by the direct object, which is him, while a president is the object complement. This is the